Hey guys, Dan here with some movie reviews for you. We already did Bill and Ted's the other day, but I've got 3 brand new Disney Plus movies to review for you, hot on the heels of Mulan coming out in just a couple days. That's going to be obviously a really big one. Now, am I going to pay the $30 for it? I'm not quite sure, but I would like to review it for you. So we'll see where I end up on that. But there's 3 recent Disney Plus movies that I wanted to get to before we hit the big mamma jamma in Mulan, and that is Magic Camp, The One and Only Ivan, and Phineas and Ferb, the movie Candace Against the Universe. Now, these all came out within the last maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. They all came out in August, and so Disney Plus is really ramping up their original content, and I think a lot of that is due to COVID. Hamilton was supposed to be released in theaters. Obviously, Mulan was supposed to be released in theaters. One and Only Ivan was supposed to be released in theaters. Magic Camp was supposed to be released in theaters. So, a lot of their movies are sort of getting the Disney Plus treatment because of theaters being shut down, and movie studios are shuffling so many movies around that there's not a lot of room for a smaller movie like Magic Camp these days. Especially when I think parents are still a little bit concerned about their kids going to the movie. So a lot of the movies that are coming out in the next month or so are really more adult-oriented. You've got Tenet, you've got The New Mutants, Unhinged, and a lot of movies like that are certainly more geared towards adults rather than families or kids. So, it makes sense to kind of shuffle around some of these. If you've got the Disney Plus, format at your leisure, why not just throw it up there, give it probably a bigger audience than it would have had in theaters anyway, although of course Disney loses money on that because it's free content, but that's a different story because obviously Mulan they're charging $30 for. But anyway, let's start it off here with Phineas and Ferb, the movie Candace Against the Universe. Now, I will say up front that I don't know a ton about Phineas and Ferb. That obviously started way after I was a kid, but I have nephews, and that seems to be like one of the 2 shows that's kind of always on when I would go visit them. SpongeBob is the one, because especially like if I'm there on a weekend, Nickelodeon just runs like 10 hours of SpongeBob straight. But a few years ago, Phineas and Ferb was another one that was like, it was on a lot. So I know the basics. I've certainly seen my share of episodes, but I wouldn't call myself necessarily a fan. I mean, I thought it was funny. I thought it was cute. But I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, I watch this all the time on my own. I don't. So if you watch my channel, you know that, number 1, I don't really give spoilers, but number 2, I really try to stay away from things like trailers and things like other reviews of movies before I review it myself. I will look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, I'll look at the audience score, but for the most part, I really try not to dive into reviews too much because I don't want them to color my review. But for this one, I did decide to kind of seek out a super fan of Phineas and Ferb just to see, like I have my thoughts on it, but how would it hold up to a super fan? So my YouTube buddy Neek that I just discovered a couple months ago, he is a big Phineas and Ferb fan. I'm going to actually leave his channel link in the description of this if you want to check him out. He does a lot of Neek stands for nerd/geek, so he does a lot of fanboy type stuff, and he's much younger than me, so Phineas and Ferb, like right in his wheelhouse, one of his favorite shows of all time. So I watched his video, and it's funny because our reviews are actually largely in line with each other. So the good thing to me that says is that this movie, even if you've not even watched Phineas and Ferb at all, I think will still find this very enjoyable. And if you have a little bit of knowledge, that helps maybe with some inside jokes, but he frickin' loved it as a super fan. So I think it hits all those buttons, which is impressive. I mean, not that kid shows aren't usually like that deep that you really, can't follow along if you're new to it. That's kind of the point, because kids watch it as they age up, so it's not like they have to watch it from the first episode to know what's going on. But with something like this, where they take a beloved show and put it into a movie format, you do kind of never know if it's going to be fan service only or if outsiders can enjoy it. And here, I think they most definitely can. Now, the general plot is, Candace is the sister, if you don't know, of Phineas and Ferb, and she's always, griping that they are, doing all these experiments and all this crazy stuff in the backyard that her mom never sees. And so she's, complaining at the beginning of the movie to her friend Vanessa about, Phineas and Ferb are at it again, I'm going to try to have a good day, but then I think about all these things that they do. And so they actually both, Candace and Vanessa, end up going into a spaceship because, she thinks it's some kind of Phineas and Ferb design, but it is not. So she ends up being sort of touted as a savior of sorts with this race. And so Phineas and Ferb realize what has happened. They, gather their collective along with what's his name? Dr. Doofenshmirtz or something. You can tell I'm not, the hugest fan. Doofenshmirtz. Yeah, okay, I was right. And so he actually joins them on their quest, which is definitely kind of odd, a new dynamic for the group. But right away from that opening song number and the opening scene, even if you've never seen a second of Phineas and Ferb, you are right there. You get it. You're like, okay, cool. I know the exact dynamic of these people. I know that they're her brothers, this and that. So I think they did a really good job of explaining that to non-fans. And, look, parents are supposed to kind of watch what their kids are watching to make sure it's okay and whatever. But, if the parents are going to sit down and watch this movie with their kids, they don't need to know anything about these characters either to enjoy the film. There are a lot of song numbers, which I like about the song numbers is that they're very short. They're only like a minute or 2 minutes. They're sort of like little ditties, whereas, in a traditional like Disney theatrical, princess film or something like Frozen or Tangled, you have like full-blown 4-minute song numbers. Not the case here. I think the longest one is maybe like 2.5 minutes. And so they're very catchy. Adulting is a really good song. Candace's song at the beginning is really funny, where she's trying to have a good day. The song where the aliens won't open the big door until they finish their song number, like that was funny. So the songs are clever, and they're also very catchy. They're good earworms, so that helps. And just the characters here are really good. Like the only thing they really don't describe too much is Perry the Platypus. I mean, we get sort of a little sense of his character, but if you have never seen the show, I think you might be confused maybe about that. But I wouldn't say Perry's like a main star of this feature anyway. He's very much a side character. And I think you do kind of get the sense of who his character is as we go on anyway. So yeah, that's all good. The voice cast, watching the show, I never really looked into who the voice cast was because none of them really stuck out to me. Like sometimes, like SpongeBob, I know, Dauber from Coach, voices Patrick Star, and I picked his voice out 20 years ago or whatever. But I never really looked into the characters here and their voices. So Ashley Tisdale is Candace, and she has been Candace, all throughout the series, which I never knew. I like Ashley Tisdale. I mean, High School Musical is fine, but I always just kind of liked her as a person. Whenever she shows up in something, she, is kind of funny, and she tends to fall on the more silly of the like Disney actresses, kind of like Miley Cyrus did back in the Hannah Montana days, like the Disney sort of type of not necessarily ditzy or dumb, but just like silly kind of female character. So that's cool. And then Phineas is voiced by Vincent Martella, who you might not know the name, but he plays Chris Rock's best friend in Everybody Hates Chris. And I never would have recognized his voice in this, so I thought that was interesting. And then Ferb, I guess, has gone through a couple different iterations over the years, but now it's voiced by David Arrigo Jr. And, there's a couple of interesting sort of very, very small rolled characters here that get voices. Wayne Brady has a voice. Caroline Ray plays the mom, as she always has. Ali Wong is in here. And I think the most interesting of all is Tiffany Haddish voices the sound someone makes when they explode from the waist up. And so it's just Tiffany Haddish basically saying the word Candace over and over and over again whenever somebody explodes. And I read something about this too, that she only wanted to be paid with an official Disney Perry the Platypus t-shirt, which Disney doesn't make anymore. So the creators had to like hand make one for her. So she's got like this one-of-a-kind exclusive Perry t-shirt. But Tiffany Haddish to me is just one of the best. Like, she just seems to just be loving her fame and not stuck on herself. And I just think that's really cool. But yeah, so that was kind of a funny little tongue-in-cheek moment too. And there's a lot of that sort of humor here. There's, fourth wall breaking and sort of tongue-in-cheek moments, and there's obviously some silliness with some of the inventions of Dr. Doofenshmirtz and all of that. But I really enjoyed this. I think this is a lot of fun for both people that love this franchise and people that are new to it. And I'm definitely more on the new to it end. Like I said, I've seen a few of the episodes over the years, with my nephews, but it's not something I've sat down and really okay, let's watch Phineas and Ferb right now. But it's always seemed kind of funny to me, and by the way, just as an aside, the way the characters are drawn, and I couldn't quite put my finger on the style, but when I was looking up some of the stuff about it, like the Tiffany Haddish thing, it said about, the original creators having this Tex Avery sort of style to it. And I was like, that's it exactly. Like, I'm a student of some, classic cartoons and stuff. Tex Avery developed the Droopy character, did a lot of the Tom and Jerry stuff back in the day, and that sort of thing. And one of his sort of key components was always, very, Picasso-like facial features and that kind of thing. And we see a lot of that here in Phineas and Ferb. So that style, I really like that they're sort of doing a nod to the Tex Avery stuff. So overall, I really liked this movie. I would definitely recommend it both to big fans and the uninitiated and anybody in between. It's funny. The songs are good. The plot is good. I mean, it's a little bit, you can sort of sense where things are going in it, but that's okay. It's a kids movie, so I sort of expect that to a certain degree. But I really enjoyed this, so I leave Phineas and Ferb, the movie, Candace Against the Universe, with an A-. By the way, slight spoiler alert for my grades, not for the movies themselves, but all of these that I'm reviewing this week are much better than the Artemis Fowl movie, which was, I think, the last thing Disney Plus had put up. So yikes on that. I think I gave that a D. That was horrible. So up next, we're going to talk about the one and only Ivan. This is based on a children's book, which I was not really familiar with. But I was talking to my sister-in-law over the weekend about it. She had read the book, so she was kind of interested in the movie. But it's K.A. Applegate is the name of the author of the book, and essentially this takes a gorilla named Ivan, who's voiced by Sam Rockwell, and he's trying to figure out his past in addition to his future. He's trying to escape, basically, with the help of an elephant named Ruby from this circus. And it's not that the circus is necessarily bad, it's not like a Dumbo kind of thing here. But Bryan Cranston plays Max, the ringleader. He's, the only real, named live action person in the movie. Everybody else is sort of just a voice for one of the animals. But, his circus is really trying to, survive. It's struggling. The people aren't really showing up anymore. We just kind of saw something similar to this in the movie Animal Crackers, which is on Netflix right now, the cartoon. But anyway, so Ruby, is the new purchase for Max at the circus. Ruby and Max, that's a cartoon, right? I think it is. But anyway, Ruby is the name of the elephant, and he sees her as a new way to bring people into the circus. She's, this really cute baby elephant, and so she's voiced by Brooklyn Prince, who I'm not super familiar with, but she's been in a few things that I've seen. The Florida Project, which is a great movie. She was in the horror movie The Turning, and she's in Home Before Dark as well, which I reviewed for my TV series not long ago. So she's one of the only names you won't know, though, of the voice cast. I mean, Angelina Jolie is here as an elephant. Danny DeVito is here again with the Danny DeVito circus stuff. Like I have to look into this because he's been in like 5 different circus themed movies. You know, like Dumbo, Big Fish, Batman Returns. A lot of them are Tim Burton related, but here he is again. You know, and he. You know, always seems to find these circus roles, and he is in Animal Crackers as well, that movie I just talked about. So, yeah, all that. Helen Mirren is here as well as a poodle named Snickers. Singer Chaka Khan is in it. So there's a lot of talented voice people. But in terms of the live action people, I think Bryan Cranston is the only one you'll really, really know. But this is sort of partially based on a true story, and they lovingly sort of tell you the short version of that true story right before the credits start rolling, about Ivan being in captivity and then being taken in to this mall where he was sort of like an attraction of sorts, and he is able to sort of paint a little bit, which they cover, you know, a good bit in the movie. That was the one part I was like, is this part real or what? And it turns out it kind of is. So it sort of goes over at the end what is real about this movie, which turns out to be more than I thought, certainly. So this movie hits a lot more emotional beats than one might anticipate. It's got a lot of heart to it, and what I really love about the movie, more than I think almost anything, is that Bryan Cranston's character is not a bad person. In almost every circus kids movie we see, the ringleader or the owner of the circus or both, you know, are bad, right? They're just mean, they're trying to, you know, exploit the animals, and that's not necessarily Max's intention. I mean, I think he definitely is grasping for his livelihood, so he's definitely maybe making some decisions that aren't great for the animals, but at his core he's not a nasty person, and I really respected that about this movie. One thing I generally don't like in movies is when the animals talk and you know, they have their mouths moving and stuff. It's very annoying to me. There's very few movies that make it work. I always point to Babe as like the exception to the rule. Babe is a great movie, but for the most part, those movies where the animals talk, I can't get behind. But I don't know, for some reason, maybe it's the voice acting, maybe it's that they don't overdo it with the CGI with it. Like, yeah, they'll make the mouth move a little bit, but it's not like, I don't know, it's not like they're necessarily trying to match it up exactly with the, you know, the vocal. They're just kind of, you know, moving the mouth a little bit kind of thing. It wasn't as distracting here as it is sometimes, so I'll give it that. However, that being said, I'm not sure why Disney did this right after the live-action Dumbo. Like, they just did live-action Dumbo last year, and if this was supposed to be a theatrical release and not Disney Plus, then obviously they were going to have, Disney was going to have 2 circus-themed kids movies, live action, with the animals talking within a year. I can't remember if Dumbo actually had the mouths and stuff moving, or if they could just talk to each other in Dumbo. But I mean, I guess they only talk to each other here. It's not like Bryan Cranston can hear them. But yeah, I forget if they actually have the mouths moving or if they just talk, you know, telepathically. Like sometimes that I don't mind. I don't care if, you know, if the animals are going to talk telepathically. But once their mouths start moving, I'm just like, all right, this is annoying. But I don't know why so close to the heels of Dumbo they did this, because not that it's the same movie at all, but there are certainly some similar themes here, especially the whole elephant bit. You know, that sort of is an instant go-to in similarity. So I don't know, that part kind of annoyed me. And I think the voice work is good here, though. Although I have to admit, I don't know, some of these characters, they don't give us really anything about. They're just sort of like there. You know, Ivan obviously, and you know, the elephants we get a good sense of, but everybody else is just, you know, they come in for like a line or two, maybe it's funny, maybe it's poignant, you know, whatever, and then they just go back into the into the shadows of the supporting characters, whatever. I don't know. I feel like Doolittle gave their animals more of a character than the ones in here, and Dolittle was a bad movie. So anyway, I think this is an okay movie. It's you know what? It's better than okay. It's definitely better than average. But would I grade this higher if it were not on the heels of Dumbo? I'm not sure. Like, it was hard for me the whole movie just to think like, man, Dumbo was just a year ago. Why are they doing this? So there's that. But Bryan Cranston gives a great performance. You forget sometimes, you know, he's been such a great dramatic and almost, you know, sort of menacing at times type of actor with Breaking Bad and some of the movie roles he's had recently. You forget that, like, he really came from kids shows, you know, Malcolm in the Middle. He came from comedy with Seinfeld and King of Queens and stuff. So you really do forget sometimes how versatile, or at least I do, Bryan Cranston can be. And so he's on display here as this really great, you know, ringmaster who is just trying to survive. And sometimes that does take into account the mistreatment maybe of the animals that he doesn't realize. I don't think he's being a bastard on purpose, you know, like some of the guys in Dumbo, for example, to evoke that yet again. But overall, I was impressed with the one and only Ivan. It's not maybe as good as I thought it might be from the description, because once you get into it, the Dumbo comparisons are real, and the you know, the talking, the flapping of the animal lips. But this is a lot more emotional than I was anticipating, for sure. So I'm going to leave the one and only Ivan with a B. So finally, we've got Magic Camp. This one, I honestly, when I read it was supposed to go to theaters, I honestly was shocked. I mean, look, Disney has always put a lot of their, you know, live-action kids movies in theaters. You know, I'm trying to think of some really good recent examples. Like, I really like Alexander and the No Good Horrible Bad Day. I mean, a lot of their sports movies I think are more a little more adult oriented, like McFarlane and $1 Million Arm and stuff. But they really have sort of an uneven, like Wrinkle in Time I thought was not good. The Nutcracker in the Four Realms was like not that good. So they really sort of are hit or miss lately with their live action properties. But this one to me just screamed Disney Channel original movie, which is not always bad. I mean, you know, they've had a few good ones. I haven't seen a ton of them. You know, I'm not really of the age group, but I mean, even in the 90s, you know, they had some that are still very famous today. You know, Smart House with Katie Seagal, and obviously the Halloween Town movies and stuff. But lately it just seems like they're all sort of this way, like Magic Camp, okay, like Teen Beach Movie, and, you know, High School Musical, and they're all sort of, they all have, you know, generic kind of titles, and doesn't really tell you much about it, except it tells you everything about it. It's a Magic Camp movie. But anyway, so I was surprised this was going to be released theatrically, but I think Disney Plus is probably the right place for it. It stars Adam Devine as Andy, this dude who went to this Magic Camp as a kid, and now he's grown up, and Roy Preston, the Magic Camp owner, played by Jeffrey Tambor, which I looked up what the deal is with this movie, because Jeffrey Tambor has had not a great track record the last few years with the Me Too movement, being kind of inappropriate on the job, and he was fired from his TV show Transparent. But this was actually made before all of that. It was made in like 2017 or something, so that makes a little more sense. Andy returns to the camp as a counselor on the urging of his former mentor, and he wants to sort of reignite his career with the new youth of the camp. Now, at the same time, you've got Gillian Jacobs, who you might know from Community, and she here is playing one of Andy's former, like, you know, sort of magic partners, and they had, you know, a run together for a little while, being sort of a duo. And she plays Christina Darkwood here, and she is also a camp counselor. And then at the same time, you have this kid, Theo. He's, I would say, the star of the movie in terms of the kids. And he plays, he's played by Nathaniel McIntyre, 12-year-old kid who is sort of gripping with his father's recent death. His father was like a huge supporter of his magic career, and the mom, you know, maybe not as much. We sort of learn a little bit more about that backstory as the movie continues. But as a 12-year-old, he is convinced by his mom to attend this magic camp. So the camp is set into 4 different factions, and they all sort of compete with each other. You know, does that remind you of Harry Potter? It certainly reminded me of Harry Potter. We're talking about magic, we're talking about kids, and we're talking about 4 different camps or, factions or, in Harry Potter speak, houses. But I mean, they're all at the same camp, so I guess it's not 4 different camps, but yeah, it's like 4 different, basically, houses. I think they're in like 4 different cabins or something. So it's, it's definitely harkening back to Harry Potter. But the stuff with Adam Devine and Gillian Jacobs is I would say the best stuff in the movie, because they both are really, going whole hog here. Adam Devine has sort of made a career, I think, out of being sort of, smarmy, loser kind of, like Workaholics, and then, the nanny he played on Modern Family for a while, and just some of his other movie choices, Pitch Perfect. He's sort of this lovable loser, but he's snarky and this and that. So this plays right into that. It's classic Adam Devine wheelhouse. But him and Gillian Jacobs do have a really nice chemistry. You could see that, okay, maybe they were partners way back in the day. And what happened? We explore that backstory through the movie. And the kid that plays Theo is fine, but he's about the only one. Like, my biggest problem with this movie is the kid actors are mostly really not good. Yeah, I mean, there's like the little bully kid, the chubby bully kid. He's always got to be, like a big fat bully. See if I can figure out who he was played by. I don't know, because I'm not exactly sure what his name was in the movie, so I don't know. But he's like, oh, here he is. Hayden Crawford plays him, but he's like okay, but he's just the character is so one-dimensional. Classic bully at camp, and like I don't do spoilers on this show, but you can kind of figure out, from the beats of every other, movie ever, what happens to the bully by the end of the movie. But the kid acting here just is not good, and it takes you out every single time. I think it's cute for what it is. I mean, if it was on, Disney Channel original movies, what would I think of it? I would probably think it's, probably above average for a Disney Channel original. Although this one doesn't have any music in it, and I do like the ones with music. So I don't know. Maybe that detracts from it a little bit. I'm not sure. But Adam Devine is certainly funny. He's in his wheelhouse. And I've always liked Jeffrey Tambor. Look, certain accusations aside or whatever, he maintains, innocence, and that he maybe is inappropriate, and maybe he's, not fun to work with, but that he's, not done certain things. And look, he's never been arrested, he's never been tried, whatever. So I've always liked Jeffrey Tambor. That goes back to the Arrested Development days, but long before that, it goes back to Larry Sanders and the Ropers. He was the neighbor on the Ropers, the Three's Company spinoff from, almost 40 years ago now. So, okay, fine. I've always liked him, and I think he's good here too. He plays the mentor role well. I think his storyline is also fairly obvious where it's going and why he's bringing Andy back to the camp. I think that's sort of a given. So this thing has a lot of real obvious beats to it, but that being said, it was enjoyable enough to watch. I just thought those kid actors were bad. It really, every time, just kind of took me out, except the kid that plays Theo. He's fine. He's certainly the best of the kid actors. I mean, like the one girl's okay too. There's like an Asian girl that is trying to break into magic. She's pretty good too, actually. But most of the other kids are just not good. And I don't think it's even that they're not written well, although they're kind of not. They're very generic. But at the end of the day, like, the acting just, I think good acting can elevate even like subpar material, but not here. This is all just kind of by the numbers. But that being said, look, I'm a Magic fan. I do really like when America's Got Talent has magicians. I like Penn and Teller Fool Us, that TV show. So I am into Magic. So I have to admit, the last like 10 or 15 minutes of the movie where they actually have like the big magic show for the families, I was definitely into that. So take that for what it's worth too. Now obviously it's not real magic because it's a script, but it's sort of look, all magic is scripted, right? It's all sort of playing with your mind. So is it any more scripted than a magic show, where you see on America's Got Talent or whatever? Probably not. It's all scripted stuff. But anyway, that being said, I should grade it here. I've talked enough about Magic Camp. I'm going to leave it with a C+. I think it just skirts that line above average. If the kid acting was better, it would be higher. But Adam Devine and Gillian Jacobs and Jeffrey Tambor really are the ones that make this thing sizzle, which I'm not sure if that's what you want from a Disney Channel movie. I feel like you want the kids to shine, but either way, a movie's a movie, so you have to take that a little bit into account more than like the studio that made it. But yeah, I think C+ is fine for Magic Camp. So that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. I still have to do my TV news and reviews for the week. I am still binging my big binge for the week, so I haven't been able to put that together yet, which is why I'm putting this up today. This was going to be my video tomorrow, but there's that. I guess I'll probably do a Mulan video. I don't. $30 is a lot. I'm a single guy. It's not like, if I had a family, $30 would make more sense because then you're with your whole family. But we'll see. We'll see. But I'll probably do a Mulan review in the next few days. And then what else? There's a bunch of other movies recently that have come out that I have not reviewed yet. An American Pickle is one of them on HBO Max, the new Seth Rogen movie. And there's one on Amazon Prime that just went up too. I forget the name of it. And then Hulu has one. And then at some point I want to do a documentary show too, because there's the Action Park documentary on HBO Max. There's the Go-Go's documentary, the girl group from the 80s on Showtime. There's been a couple of good documentaries I wanted to check out on Netflix. So at some point soon, I think I'm going to do a documentary show as well. But anyway, comment below. Subscribe to my buddy Neek. He does some really fun videos. If you're interested in more, geek culture kind of stuff, check him out. And that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.